There is no greater wealth than contentment. This is not merely a proverb from the distant past, but a living truth, one that echoes through every heart that has ever longed for peace. In a world that constantly whispers more, better, next, the silent voice of contentment goes unheard. And yet, it is this voice, subtle, unwavering, that holds the key to a deeper freedom. We have been taught to measure wealth by numbers, possessions, achievements, applause. From childhood, the seeds of scarcity are sown, that happiness is out there, always a little ahead, always just beyond the next accomplishment. So we chase, and we chase, until even rest feels like laziness, even presence feels like wasted time. But what if all this effort has been a great forgetting? What if true wealth has never been about what we can gain, but what we can release? Contentment is not apathy. It is not resignation. It is not settling for less. It is the deep realization that what you are and what is here right now is already enough. That the need to add, fix, improve, or become is born from a mind that has forgotten its own wholeness. Chanakya, one of India's most revered ancient philosophers, saw through this illusion centuries ago. His words point not to material prosperity, but to an inner treasure, one that cannot be taxed, stolen, or lost in the fluctuations of fortune. It is the richness of one who is no longer disturbed by the endless fluctuations of desire. To be content is to live in alignment with life itself, not because everything is perfect, but because nothing needs to be. Look around. How many of your struggles are rooted in not enough success, not enough love, not enough clarity, not enough time? The mind feeds on this lack and builds its identity from it. But the heart, when quieted, knows a different language. It says, "This breath is enough. This sky is enough. This life, in its imperfect unfolding, is enough." The path of contentment is radical because it refuses to obey the noise of modern ambition. It does not race. It does not compare. It bows. It breathes. It receives. And in that sacred receiving, something shifts. A different kind of power emerges. Not the power of control, but of surrender. Not the power to conquer the world, but to be at peace within it. This is the beginning of true wealth.
Contentment is often mistaken for passivity, for a dull sort of acceptance. But in truth, it is the most vibrant expression of spiritual maturity. To be content is not to be asleep. It is to be fully awake to what is, without the restless hunger for what isn't. The mind, untamed, believes that satisfaction is dangerous, that if we stop striving, we will fade into nothingness, that desire is what keeps us alive. And yet, look closely. It is not desire that breathes life into us. It is being, pure, unfiltered, ever-present being. Discontent is the default posture of the ego. It is built into its fabric, the constant sense of something missing. So when contentment begins to grow within us, the ego panics. It whispers that we're falling behind, that we've lost our edge, that others are overtaking us. But what the ego fears is not failure, it is freedom. It cannot survive in a heart that has stopped chasing. To walk the path of contentment is to step out of comparison, to no longer measure your life by someone else's timeline, dreams, or definitions of success. It is to see clearly, to recognize that every time we grasp, we reinforce the illusion that we are incomplete. This doesn't mean you stop creating, or dreaming, or evolving. It means you no longer create from a place of lack. You dream without escape. You evolve from stillness, not from fear. When we touch contentment, life becomes astonishingly simple. A sip of water becomes a blessing. A moment of silence becomes a symphony. There is no urge to impress, to prove, to accumulate. The soul breathes easier, the shoulders soften, the inner noise begins to quiet. It is not easy. We are surrounded by systems designed to keep us in a state of craving. Advertising, achievement culture, performance metrics, all of them feed the lie that more is better and that peace lies just one step beyond where you are now. But it never arrives, and it never will. Contentment, on the other hand, is always available, but never forced. It is not something you chase, it is something you recognize. It is already here, waiting beneath the surface of your striving, waiting to be remembered. To choose contentment is to choose now, to say yes to this very breath without condition, to live with a gentle, open hand, no longer grasping, no longer controlling. And when we do, we begin to see this is wealth, this is abundance, this is the rarest gold, invisible to the eye, but unmistakable to the heart.
There is a sacred joy that arises when we no longer demand that life be different from what it is. A deep, nameless calm begins to permeate our days, and with that calm comes a subtle shift. Instead of trying to extract value from each moment, we begin to give ourselves to it. This is the essence of contentment, a generosity of presence. Rather than clinging to what might be or mourning what is not, we begin to meet life where it stands. A sunrise is no longer a backdrop for productivity, but a revelation of beauty. A conversation is no longer a means to an end, but a portal to connection. Even moments of solitude or difficulty become opportunities to rest in being, not as a spiritual ideal, but as a lived, embodied truth. The paradox is this: when we stop needing things to change, the world begins to open. Not because reality shifts, but because our perception becomes clear. The fog of desire, anxiety, and comparison dissolves. In its place remains only what is, simple, ordinary, and sacred. Contentment does not require us to abandon ambition. It asks only that we see clearly what fuels our movement. Are we creating from love or from lack? Are we acting from wholeness or from hunger? The world does not need more achievement. It needs more peace. More people who have remembered how to be still, how to be enough, how to love the moment they're in. And here's the quiet miracle. Contentment makes space for gratitude, not the kind that is forced or performative, but a gratitude that arises naturally, without effort, the kind that sees the extraordinariness in a breath, the softness in a breeze, the silence behind all sound. This is the abundance that Chanakya speaks of, not the abundance of possessions, but of perception, not the fullness of the bank account, but of the heart. To be content is not to be indifferent. It is to be radically intimate with what is, to no longer postpone joy until all the conditions are perfect, but to discover again and again that joy is not conditional. It is not a future event. It is a present reality, always waiting to be seen. This wisdom is ancient. It echoes through every true spiritual path, every quiet life, every mystic who has stepped away from the noise of the world to sit beside a stream and smile at the sky. Because in the end, everything we chase was never the point, and what we truly long for has always been here, close, quiet, and enough.
In the stillness of contentment, we discover that what we were seeking outside was never missing inside. The endless striving for more status, more pleasure, more approval, begins to feel like a mirage that loses meaning the closer we get to it. The race, so exhausting and so praised by the world, reveals itself for what it truly is: a distraction from the beauty of simply being. Contentment is not passivity. It is not complacency. It is the fierce intelligence of the heart that sees clearly and chooses peace over pursuit. It is a clarity that says, I no longer need to become someone else. I no longer need life to bend in my favor. I am whole, even now. This is the liberation that the wise have always pointed to. Chanakya, in his quiet observation, recognized that true wealth was not something to acquire, but something to remember. It is the remembrance that nothing outside of us can complete us, and nothing inside us was ever missing to begin with. In this state of inner fullness, life becomes a blessing, not a burden. Each moment is a gift, not a transaction. We no longer approach existence as consumers, but as witnesses, lovers, participants in a sacred dance that asks only our presence. And with that presence, we begin to see abundance everywhere, not in possessions, but in perception. The sky becomes vast again, the silence holy, the ordinary extraordinary. And in the middle of it all, we find ourselves, not as the anxious seekers we once were, but as peaceful beings who have come home. The irony is striking. The very thing we were running toward was waiting in the space we were running from. Contentment was never a finish line, but a doorway, always open, always still. So we pause, we breathe, we let go of the illusion that something more is needed. And in that sacred letting go, the wealth of being floods in, silent, powerful, and unmistakably real. As Chanakya reminds us, there is no greater wealth than this, not because it buys us anything, but because it frees us from needing to. And in that freedom, we return, not to a lesser life, but to a deeper one where we are no longer chasing the moment, but living inside it. Right here, right now, enough.